Maybe just go first
Okay.
and then go to
Go
questions.
first and then questions?
Okay. I am gonna go because in August of 2019, he was falsely accused of sex assault. And his life has been turned upside down ever since. I mean, imagine being a student or a student athlete and all of a sudden you're kicked off your sports team for what's your livelihood. It's your livelihood and maybe potentially your dream career. You're kicked off the football team. You're kicked out of school. You're kicked off campus and out of your apartment. And a lot of friends start dropping like flies. And everything you know is just gone. I mean, and it doesn't have to be football or school, just imagine whatever your livelihood is. And that is what this accuser took away from him 2 years ago, and he hasn't gotten it back since. And this was a long haul. And I mean, I'm not saying this lightly. I believed in this kid from day one. And I believe that, and I'm not even gonna say women, people are responsible for the decisions that they make. And when people make decisions, that's fine. We can't judge them for their decisions. We can only judge them when they then lie about their decisions. And that is not okay to do. And that's what happened here and led to him being falsely accused. And I am so grateful that we had 12 men and women who analyzed the case and saw through the lies and served justice today. Because now this young man can finally start to put this behind him and pursue his future. But listen, do whatever you want in college. You can drink, you can not drink, you can party, you can not party, you can have sex with people or not have sex with people. Make your own choices and stand by your choices. And don't blame other people for your own poor decisions. It's not fair, it's not right. And again, I'm just so grateful that 12 men and women really analyzed the evidence in this case and made the right decision and set this young man free today.
Yeah, I want you, this is a strong young man, right? He had to be strong for his mom. He had to be strong for a lot of people because they saw backs turn really quickly. They saw doors slammed shut. And, you know, Katarian stuck it out. He believes in the United States Constitution. He believed that he would get justice, and he kept faith the entire time. And I've seen it happen. I've seen people falsely accused and their lives fall apart. Look, Katarian saw the ground crumbling, but he didn't stop doing what he needed to do. He continued to study. He continued to work out. He continued to believe in his future, and we have believed in him since day one. Katarian, why don't you tell us a little bit about how this experience affected you?
This experience probably was one of the hardest things that I ever had to endure, my mom ever had to endure, but we kept our faith. We always seen it was light at the end of the tunnel, even though we didn't know what to expect. And just having such a great support system around you, great lawyers to fight for you and really go to bat for you, it means everything. So I never lost focus, I never lost faith. If anything, I started to grind harder, I started to think smarter. I just wanted even more. So I feel like I'm a better person today, I'm a better man, I'm a better athlete, and I'm just happy right now.
And what's next for you? What are your plans?
To get back in school and continue playing football, doing what I love to do.
And Mallory, you mentioned the jury. Since we weren't able to see the makeup of the jury, can you give us some kind of idea? Was it split pretty evenly between men and women, or?
It was, yeah, it was. It was split almost exactly evenly between men and women. Don't quote me on the numbers, but yeah, it was a very even split of men and women. I'd say as young as probably mid-20s up through, you know, probably some people in their 60s without wanting to speculate on age too much. But yeah, it was a very diverse group.
And are there any lessons to be learned here for young men and women out there as far as consent issues go and how to make it clear what's going on?
Just be clear about what you do and don't want ahead of time.
And I think for young men too, I mean, this is, you have to be careful. People get, and this is not a case where alcohol or drugs are involved, but we see a lot of these cases where both men and women, young men and women, are using drugs for the first time or alcohol for the first time. They're away from home for the first time, and they're making adult decisions. And I think that when you make decisions, you have to be held accountable for those decisions. And whether it's someone's making the wrong decision, they commit a crime, or someone made a wrong decision, they're embarrassed about it, or they think something was recorded, right? You have to be accountable for your decisions. And I think it's important that we understand, especially as parents, no matter how hard we try to instill that in our kids, once we let them go, we can't keep them safe. We got to make our children strong. We have to let them know about their rights, and we have to let them know that there are going to be things that are going to happen when they make decisions. Consequences will result from those decisions, good or bad.
And that's important. Raise them to be strong, because our law doesn't require two people to talk about sex or to verbally agree to sex. It's not a requirement. And I mean, think about your own sexual experiences. How many times are you saying, are we going to do this now? Yes, okay. And some people may, and that's fine too. But the law doesn't require it. So if you don't want it, just say you don't want it. And the law will support that decision for you. But you've got to make your voice heard, and you can't make somebody guess about what's going on in your head, because that's just not what the law says, and it's not practical given how human beings interact with one another. And so again, just accountability.
And understand the law works both ways, right? The law is not just there to protect the accuser, it's also there to protect the accused. And that's why the black letter of the law matters so much, because we have to rely on what the law says. And we have to rely on this simplest meaning so that everyone can understand it and understand what it means. And here, things got really blurry with the facts, but the law was the law, and we're grateful that the jury followed it.
The jury went to deliberations. This could be for any of you. How confident were you? How nervous were you that you were going to get the verdict you wanted?
I mean, we believed in our case, and we believed in the truth the whole time. That much is clear. You never know what people are going to hear and not hear. Particularly in this case, there were a ton of witnesses, a ton of facts for them to sort through. It was no easy job for those 12 people, I'll tell you that. So, all you can do is hope that they really heard and understood your side and the truth, and they did in this case. So were we confident that we put it all out there? Yes. But again, it's a hard, we've been living with the facts of this case for 2 years almost. The jury had 5 or 6 days to try and make sense of this whole thing. So it's, there's so many people involved, and names and dates and things like that. It's a tall order for those 12 individuals. But we were confident. It's the jury selection process, which is really a deselection process. We ended up with 12 very bright men and women, so we were confident in their ability to figure it out.
And I guess more importantly, you want to hear from Katarian, because he's the one that woke up this morning with a feeling in his stomach. So Katarian, why don't you tell us?
I was real confident just because I knew my lawyers had my back, and they laid everything on the line, and but you don't know what 12 people that you don't know are thinking or what they're deliberating about. So that's where the nerves kicked in. But as far as my lawyers doing their job and really going back for me, I never had a word. So it kind of eased everything.
You mentioned you're trying to play football again. How confident are you you're gonna get another shot at it?
I've been working harder than I ever been working, so I feel like college coaches will see that, and when I started, start back reaching out to coaches and go visit different schools, they'll know.
Katarian has a resilience that not a lot of his fellow competitors are going to have. Right? He's had everything taken away. And so I think he has a level of maturity now and a level of drive that is greater than has ever been there. And as this case has progressed, Katarian has always kept his chin up and kept working hard. And so the reality is, while this has been a nightmare for him, he's in a very good place right now, and he is excited to get back, and he is more driven than ever to achieve his goals.
While the accuser was on the stand, there was a moment where you were kind of emotional. Can you tell us what was going through your mind when you were hearing her account of how it happened?
It was just really hard to hear. Just hear the lies and the accusation. It was kind of like, why am I here? Like, I wondered, like, did the jury think what I was thinking? Like, it was just hard to hear just the being lied on, and it just seemed like someone just playing with your life at this point. So it was just a tough moment to hear. It was just a tough moment for me.
Yeah, I was sitting there, it almost felt like a moment of helplessness for him. Like, I have to sit here and take this.
Because he was, he's in that room and he knew what happened and he knew what she was saying is not what happened. And I think to hear that, I mean, again, you put yourself in that position where you know that you didn't do something wrong in a situation. And it doesn't have to be as serious or this, or it can be more serious, but, and this person is up there trying to convince 12 people otherwise. I mean, that's terrifying. His entire life was on the line, and she was doing everything she could to ruin it.
Terry, how do you get your good name back?
By doing what I was doing when it was ruined, keeping my head up, staying consistent with being the person that I was before and after, just working hard, being honest, not cutting no corners, respectable young man, and just showing who I really am as a person.
How much do you advise other people, about the situation you got yourself in? How much do you reflect on, how you go about doing stuff now?
I would say just be aware and be conscious that anything can happen to you. So it may not seem like, oh, it won't happen to me, or you'll hear about things. When you hear about things, anything can happen to you. It don't matter if you did anything wrong or you didn't. If someone put an accusation out, then it just how life goes. So I would say just be aware, mainly to athletes and young athletes, and particularly young black athletes. Just be aware of your surroundings and people you hang with.
I mean, and I would follow up on that we have this Me Too movement, which started out as a very powerful and empowering movement for true victims of sex assault to be able to come forward about some really traumatic and hard experiences. And the problem with that, like any movement, things can be misused. And when placed in the wrong hands, they're lethal. And some people, we believe in this instance, misuse that concept, and they target people. And it's not just athletes or black athletes. We've seen it with politicians, we've seen it with wealthy people, we have seen people targeted, and we've seen plenty of people exonerated in these kinds of cases. So you have to be very careful about the people that you choose to spend time with, because they may not have the best motives and they could get you into some serious trouble after the fact.
And sorry I was late, but what did this case come down to? Was it a he said, she said thing, or was it more than that?
Yeah, I think it was a he said, she said. I think it was, there were a lot of potential motivations there. There was a young woman who was upset that another football player had broken up with her and chose to go over to the apartment of another football player, and knowing what that person's intentions were, and disregarding them, and whether she wanted to engage in that kind of behavior or not, verbally was never said, but by her actions that she took before, during, and following the encounter, I think the conclusion that 12 reasonable people reached was that she wanted all of that to happen on some level. And if she didn't, that remained inside of her own head, unfortunately.
And I think almost saying it's a he said, she said, Andrew, is almost like an oversimplification of what was going on. I know you don't get to see it all in the courtroom, but we had a lot of help from my paralegal Cassidy Hasty and our appellate attorney Mike Wilson, who behind the scenes we're dealing with issues about trying to keep, whether certain evidence is going to come in or stay out, and what instructions the jury is going to get. And so there's all these things going on behind the scenes that on the surface it's just a he said she said, but in the background we're having a battle over what the sex assault statute actually means, right? So there's Mallory did a phenomenal job in this case, and she carried the weight, and she did a phenomenal job of getting the truth out there. But I got to tell you, it was a long, hard fight, and ultimately, on its face, it's a he said, she said, but there were many fights in this battle, and we had a lot of great team members who stepped up, helped us out, and Katarian and his mom were there all the way, great clients, willing to tell the truth, willing to have the difficult conversations about what happened, and it all worked out, and it all worked out because we all worked really hard. But yes, on that surface, this is a he said, she said. But when you go below the surface, there's quite a lot more to it.
And I will say that if you want to define it that way, it was a he said, they said.
Yes.
And this young man was accused in August of 2019. And for 4 months, neither he nor the co-defendant were arrested, okay? And this is after all of the witnesses pertaining to this case had been interviewed. And they had been interviewed, and they had given statements. And you saw it in the evidence that they had changed their statements. Law enforcement had all of this. The prosecutor's office had all of this. They didn't arrest them, okay? They didn't, and I'm not gonna say what was or was not going on in their minds, but there was no finding of probable cause to arrest this young man for 4 months. Then another girl comes out of the woodwork saying, me too, a year and a half ago. And that girl now has an active lawsuit against the university. And then they filed charges. So this is, this is a perfect example of a non-credible accuser, no arrests, a second non-credible accuser coming forward. And we had to show both the jury how 2 young women, not just 1, but 2, were not credible in their allegations. And again, we had black jurors, we had white jurors, we had men, we had women, and they viewed all of that and found him not guilty in about 3 hours. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the frightening things that happens in cases like this, and it's not the first time Mallory and I have had a case where this happened, where something gets out there and it just spreads so quickly, especially around a college campus. The next thing you know, people are coming out of the woodwork, and we don't know why. And a lot of the allegations seem so ridiculous, but they still come out, and we've seen that happen time and time again. So with social media, and especially on college campuses, things spread quickly, and then people, I don't know why, but they want to be in the spotlight. And whether it's people making anonymous calls that are completely baseless or something like that, it's just amazing how quick people are to trash other people once they learn bad news.
And I will say that for people who wonder, why would she go through all of this and get on the stand and do this? I will tell you that for some of these accusers who are not telling the truth, this is their moment, and they are being applauded, and they're being congratulated, they're being told they're brave, and that is the case for real victims who do this. I will tell you, it is a brave thing to do.
For real victims.
Yeah, for real victims. It is brave and hard to come out and do this, but whether you're telling the truth or not, you are getting that positive support. This is not a situation where, she had a ton of positive support and a ton of people behind her in this, and she hired or was searching for lawyers within 12 hours of being discharged from the hospital. So there are other motivations there, and people need to consider that. And people need to start presuming innocence, because that's what our law requires, and not jumping the gun and just assuming that, oh, this person was accused, they must have done something wrong. Please stop doing that. It's not fair. And when you ask, how do you build your good name back? How unfair that he was falsely accused, and now it's on him to build his good name back because somebody falsely accused him. That is not fair, and I think that people need to start trying a little harder to wait and see the big picture before they're so quick to judge somebody.
And I would point how hard, and maybe Karen will speak to this, maybe won't, but how hard it was for him because he has someone who's very close to him who is a sex assault victim. And having to know that and know what that is and know that he's being falsely accused of something that was devastating to someone who's very close to him. Katarian, could you tell us what that's like?
Yeah, to hit on that a little bit, with a sexual assault accusation or any accusation to that standard, it's like you're proven guilty into innocence, and it's the opposite. You're innocent into proven guilty. So that's when it kind of raised eyebrows with the accusation, and the accuser is not looked at no type of way. They're looked at as they're brave and this and that, or I'm sorry for you. And it's hard for real victims to speak up or feel some type of way because they've really been through something so traumatic, such as someone's close to me. And I know how it affects her to this day. So it's kind of like a slap in the face, and it hurts to put someone through that who's really been through that, and you're lying on that person. So that's a situation or a subject I wouldn't take lightly.
Questions?
You let this, I guess what happens now, do you just let this go, or is there a chance that you may seek civil action against your accusers?
I wouldn't answer that at this time. I think it's way too fresh and emotional to be able to even
My
discuss.
focus right now is just getting back to school and getting back to football right now.
What have you been doing the last, year and a half or so?
Training like a madman. Training.
Has that been here, or has that been
Oh, back home in Atlanta?
Atlanta?
Yes, sir.